Okay, let me begin by thanking Adi Ophir and Tim Bewes for organizing and inviting me to this workshop on political concepts. I'm very excited to be here, also to meet old friends and new colleagues. And I very much look forward to the contributions to these intriguing concepts you proposed. Is this working?
Yes.
Yeah. My own concept, Transspecies Imaginary, contributes to contemporary political thought in various ways. I've been thinking about it since I completed my recent book on nuclear politics titled Radioactive Ghosts, which ended with a chapter on transspecies selves. That was in response to Jay Lifton's concept of the species self. Because I thought we need a more encompassing project to include the entanglement with other species. In this sense, the concept is a political response to various crises of our time, including climate change, the sixth extinction, and the pandemic age. The concept also refers to the awareness of the destructive and self-destructive consequences of speciesism and its entanglement with a pervasively racist imaginary. The concept is crucial to environmental humanities, but also, as my reflections on the molecular turn in the life sciences should make clear, to the medical humanities. Finally, and this is the focus of my own research on transspecies selves, it is meant as an intervention in thinking about political subjectivity. And I'm sure I will have exchanges with Tim that began last night. With these preliminaries in mind, I will now turn to my brief talk. Stories of transspecies encounters have been flourishing in mythologies, literature, and the arts since the recording of human history. The earliest known relationships humans established to nature were grounded in the deeply animistic and relational epistemologies and ontologies of indigenous cultures that assumed a dynamic, animate world with pervasive entanglements, interdependencies, and flexible boundaries between species. Currently, we witness the emergence of new relational onto-epistemologies and cultural imaginaries permeated by what has come to be called new animisms. And I'm thinking of theorists like Deleuze and Guattari first, but Viveros de Castro, Bruno Latour, Karen Barat, Donna Haraway, and Mel Chen, to name just a few. Some theorists even perceive this relational turn as a new episteme that transcends the boundaries of disciplines and permeates flourishing new movements in the arts. I see the reemergence of relational onto epistemologies as part of a larger turn toward ecological thinking, if not a new ecology of mind in Gregory Bateson's sense. It has gained ground since the beginning of the 21st century, deeply unsettling the paradigm of human mastery over nature that continues to shape Western capitalism and its hold on most of the global world. This new wave of ecological thinking emphasizes the interdependencies of human and non-human actors, including other species, as well as the natural world, no longer considered as inanimate, but as vibrant matter. Among the non-human actors, this thinking also includes technologies and their impact not only on the world and its resources, but also on the shaping of human societies, subjectivities, and ecologies of mind through biological, artificial, and material semiotic assemblages. Fueled by profound environmental destruction and crises, this relational turn also calls for a return to and revaluation of indigenous epistemologies and cosmologies. In the following, I will focus my perspective on specific manifestations of a new wave of transspecies imaginaries that is part of this relational turn. Highlighting the permeable and precarious boundaries between species, transspecies imaginaries have a history that reaches back to the origins of human storytelling. Phantasms of metamorphoses and transspecies selves abound in the cultural unconscious of the most diverse cultures, challenging the stable boundaries of the human as a species. In indigenous beliefs, we find transspecies beings such as, for example, shapeshifters and katsinas. Literary transspecies phantasms can be traced from Ovid to Kafka and Lispector. The long history of transspecies bodies in the arts is continued with new work, including, for example, Pierre Huyghe's transspecies assemblages and Louis Bourgeois' transspecies bodies. From a more theoretical perspective, my new project on transspecies imaginaries develops steps toward an ecology of mind based on imaginary multi-species ethnographies and transspecies relationalities. In response to current challenges to the survival of many species, if not planetary life, critical theories have developed new concepts of the human that reconsider the boundaries between humans and their environment, including other species. Already in the early 70s, Bateson argued forcefully that the most important factor for the survival of the planet is the development of a new ecology of mind. He called for a thinking mindful of the environmental entanglement of humans, insisting that the unit of survival is not organism, but organism and environment. My project is inspired by a wide range of theories from different disciplines, as well as by literary, artistic, and cultural objects. For today's talk, I will paradigmatically select two conceptual frameworks that inspired my thoughts. Samantha Frost's concept of biocultural creatures and Merlin Sheldrake's concept of entangled life. Drawing on these and related concepts, I developed steps toward a theory of transspecies selves with a focus on emergent subjectivities in precarious ecologies. Frost's biocultural creatures calls for a new theory of the human, arguing that recent critiques of the category of the human and human exceptionalism have left us bereft of a category of the human subject that can be mobilized to address today's multiple crises. To grasp the co-constitution of body and environment, biology and habitat, Frost theorizes humans as biocultural creatures. Homo sapiens, she insists, is not a pure species, but emerged from entanglements between the Homo species and their environments. Rather than conceptualizing the human in distinction to other species, Frost focuses on the, quote, conditions of existence that humans share with all living creatures. Theorizing transspecies entanglements implies thinking bodies and environments together, since complex interchanges between biological and social processes challenge the boundaries between the two. A similar permeability of boundaries also pertains to those between species. In Death in Life, Robert Jane Lifton coined the term species self in reference to atomic bomb survivors who, after the attack, thought in terms of the human species and in its survival rather than in terms of national or other forms of belonging. In my recent book, Radioactive Ghosts, I argue that considering nuclearism, climate change, and environmental destruction, we must expand our ecology of mind to include other species and therefore think in broader terms of transspecies self. What we could call a transspecies turn in theories of the human amounts to a paradigm shift that affects ways of thinking and being in the world. Focusing on the boundaries of the human, Frost writes, the body is conceived as porous or permeable in a way that belies the sense either that the self is distinct from the body or the body is distinct from the social and material environment. The co-constitution of creatures and environments also concerns the relationship between species, including the bacteria and viruses that choose animal or human bodies as hosts and affect the materiality and health of bodies at the molecular level. Stephen Cole argues that our molecular selves are far more fluid and permeable to social environmental influence than we have generally appreciated. Niklas Rowe speaks pointedly of a molecular turn in the life sciences. Frost adds that we need to think not only in terms of the molecularization of life, but also in terms of the environmentalization of the molecule. She insists both on the biological inscription of social perceptions and on the transformative integration of the social, symbolic, and material into the biology of the body including transgenerational transmission. The larger implications of Frost's theory are profound. Ultimately, it requires a reconceptualization of culture beyond the symbolic and representational. And as Frost puts it, a double conceptual move to denaturalize the body and to deculturalize culture. Now, think, for example, of the culture of our still lingering pandemic, which is co-constituted in all its elements by a virus and its proliferating variants. Frost's concept of biocultural creatures can productively inform theories of subjectivity and the self. Human subjectivity develops in response to natural and cultural habitats. The latter also include industrial products such as chemicals, pharmaceuticals, pollutants, etc. Now think here, for example, of the poisoning of entire populations, as it is, for example, described in Indra Sinha's masterful 2007 novel Animals, People, that deals with the aftermath of the 1984 Bhopal disaster. More generally, subjectivity develops in response to natural and cultural environments, including urban ecologies and living spaces, as well as informational technologies encompassing literature, the arts, entertainment, and the culture industry. It develops in response to religion and spirituality, but also in response to politics, violence, and war. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it develops in the modes of connecting to other humans as well as other species. Whether or not we are aware of it, we are and have always been profoundly transspecies self. Today's challenge is to build this knowledge not only into our theories and scholarly practices, but also into our everyday lives and actions, to refashion our transspecies relationships in ways conducive to the survival of planetary life. Developing an ecology of mind that facilitates sustainable transspecies relationship requires transdisciplinary collaboration. In biology, epigenetics, for example, addresses in Frost's terms the material and corporeal effect of the symbolic, representational, and political dimensions on biocultural habitats. Frost also points to the resurgence of interest in ontology. I think this resurgence is a response to the current challenge to planetary survival. And all the different challenges to this survival have generated a profound ontological insecurity. I now move to Merlin Sheldrake's Entangled Life. The growing awareness of our entanglement with the more than human world also includes the knowledge of our microbiome and its impact on mind and mood. The microbial sciences subtly challenge the boundaries between humans and other species. In Entangled Lives, how fungi make our worlds, change our minds, and shape our futures, Sheldrake defines the challenge posed by the microbial sciences. I quote, "We are ecosystems composed of and decomposed by an ecology of microbes. Our microbial relationships are as intimate as any can be. We are ecosystems that span boundaries and transgress categories. Ourselves emerge from a complex tangle of relationships only now becoming known." Sheldrake, interestingly, compares the onto-epistemological rupture generated by these new knowledges to conventional symptoms of mental illness, such as loss of a sense of self-identity, delusions of self-identity, experiences of alien control. In psychological terms, these experiences indicate a state of ontological insecurity. In ecological terms, however, we are forced into a position of ontological uncertainty that can be productive. While ecosystems have shaped and been shaped by human cultures for thousands of years, it is only after the cataclysmic collapse of sustainable ecologies that we are forced into acknowledging that our lives are entangled with other species and environments. But how can the growing awareness of these entanglements shape the transspecies relationship with mysterious organisms that appear radically alien to us? If it is already hard for humans to relate to the non-charismatic animal species, such as, for example, certain insects, because they appear too alien, how much harder is it to imagine a transspecies relationship with fungi and mycelia? Understanding radically different organisms pushes the limits of empathy and begs the question of anthropomorphism. Sheldrake highlights that what we might not notice if we follow the strict prohibition on humanizing the world to understand organisms in their own terms. He suggests that we might learn from indigenous languages a grammar of animacy that attributes aliveness to the more than human world. Equipped with this grammar of animacy, might we be able to expand some of our concepts such that speaking might not always require a mouth, hearing might not always require ears, and interpreting might not always require a nervous system. That's Sheldrake's quote. Let me end with a literary example and play with the reading of Samuel Beckett's The Unnameable as a literary response to Sheldrake's vision of speaking without a mouth or hearing without ears. Listen to these passages in The Unnamable's monologue, in which he envisions an organless hearing and speaking. Quote, "Without an ear I'll have heard, and I'll have said it without a mouth." As The Unnamable's monologue unfolds, he increasingly uses, in Sheldrake terms, a grammar of animacy that de-anthropomorphizes the human. His phantasms of animate, organless body culminate in the conception of worm, an experimental transspecies creature never completely born, yet buried before his time. Y.G. Dimmock imagines literature as a contagious site. Beckett's work figures humans as a finite species, forcing us to inhabit a position of radical onto-epistemological uncertainty, not unlike the one invoked by Sheldrake. Like Sheldrake, Beckett depathologizes alternate mental states. Both challenge us to embrace a new ecology of mind, grounded in porous boundaries of bodies, distributed minds, and transspecies entanglements. These transspecies imaginaries and concepts of transspecies self allow one to rethink the long histories of animism and animacies. Finding an adequate, non-anthropocentric language to describe the emerging animisms in contemporary art, literature, and critical theory is not easy. The unnameable, in his attempts to approximate what he experiences as unknowable, consistently exposes the inadequacies of available forms of expression. More conciliatory, Sheldrake suggests a compromise of approximation. Quote, "Our descriptions warp and deform the phenomena we describe, but sometimes this is the only way to talk about features of the world, to say what they are like but not. Might this also be the case when we talk about other organisms?" Inevitably, our theories, interpretations, and discourses will be marked by the epistemological uncertainties of understanding and relating to species that are radically alien to us. These gaps in our knowledge about other species confront us with the unknowable that will always be part of our world. Beckett shows that nothing fuels our imagination more than what we experience but do not yet or will never know. Y.G. Dimmock writes, "Humans as a species have a track record of bouncing back, turning the endgames of finite individuals into linked chapters in our ongoing life. So let us learn how to act according to this profound onto-epistemological challenge, including perhaps the teaching, if not creation of transspecies stories and concepts that sustain the survival of the rich diversity of planetary life." And I'll end here.